who doesn't know what is Bitcoin? No one, right? You all should have at least heard of it, right? Unless you've been living in a home somewhere. So, some quick facts about Bitcoin. It was created by this entity called Satoshi Nakamoto. I say entity because no one really knows who this person is. If it's a he, it's a she, or if it's a group of people. They just came, they created Bitcoin, and then they pretty much disappeared. So Bitcoin is known as cryptocurrency, and it is the first decentralized digital currency. What this means, I'll explain it on. It is a peer-to-peer system, and there is a limited number of Bitcoins in the world, only 21 million. There cannot be any more than that. Okay. So what is a Bitcoin? One Bitcoin. What is it? You can actually picture it as if it is electricity converted into code that costs money. Means it has value. So at the moment, as of last night, I checked, one Bitcoin is about 8,807. Just a few months ago, I think half a year ago, it was worth like a lot more, 2-3 times more, something like that. It just dropped. Okay, so how does Bitcoin work? Bitcoin operates through something called a blockchain, which uses computational functions such as hashing, and as well as trees, which you will see later on. So first, a blockchain can be imagined as what it sounds like, a chain of blocks. So imagine each block as a block of code. It all starts with one genesis block, which is the first block ever made in a blockchain, and then new blocks are added every time it is mined. So these terms sound confusing, don't worry, we can think with it. So every time you download a Bitcoin wallet from online, which you can, or if you can, are able to do it, you will receive the blockchain. So what this blockchain is it is a ledger, meaning it has all the records of every Bitcoin transactions ever made by anyone. So if you buy or sell Bitcoins, that transaction will be put into a block, which will then be added on into the blockchain. So just now I mentioned that Bitcoin is peer-to-peer, means every time you make a transaction, that transaction is broadcasted to other people that have a Bitcoin wallet on their computer, either on a desktop, laptop, phone maybe. So it's broadcasted out, and then it's verified. Once it's verified, it is broadcasted out even more. Once that is verified, even more. So that is how every transaction gets broadcasted into the network, and how the Bitcoin ledger is decentralized, meaning everyone has a copy, and that copy is verified and real. So how do blocks get added into the chain? In the network, in the Bitcoin network, there are people known as miners that work specifically to add the blocks to the chain. So blocks are only added to the chain when it has been solved. So what does it mean to solve a block? In order to go into this, I need to talk about the hash function. So in most programming languages, you will encounter this thing known as a hash. In Python, I think is known as the data structure that uses this very frequently is known as a dictionary. So a hash function takes in an input of any length and returns an output of a fixed length. So I mean, I think most of you won't get this. IS people maybe you will get it. You know, it's alright. So a subset of the hash function is the cryptographic hash function, whereby every output will be different as long as the input is not the same. So back to the hash function. One example of a hash function is a remainder function. So let me give you an example. If you divide 9 by 2, what is the remainder? 1. Can you get 9 from 1? I mean, not by any arbitrary function, like you can't plus 8 to it. But if I tell you 1, do you know that I got it from 9? No, right? So that is the property of a hash function. That the fact that you cannot get back the original input from the output. So for the cryptographic hash function, it is impossible to get the same output for a different input. So 9 divided by 2 gives you a remainder of 1. 11 divided by 2 also gives you a remainder of 1. So that is not a cryptographic hash function. A cryptographic hash function would be like if you 9 divided by 2 and you get a remainder of 1, 11 divided by 2 will not give you a remainder of 1, which is not true. So that is not cryptographic. So every time the same output comes out, it is known as a collision. And hash functions have been proven that hash functions that have been proven to have collisions are no longer known as cryptographic hash functions. So here's an example. SHA-256 is quite a well-known cryptographic hash function. If you just write hello world, you get the first string. If you write hello world with all small letters, you get the second string. And if you just add exclamation mark at the end, you get the third string. So as you can see, these are all different and have fixed length. So let's go back to the blockchain now that you understand what a hash function is and look at what is inside a block. So inside a block contains a block header, which contains a root hash, which is produced from a Merkle tree. So trees are a concept that you'll be learning later on in the course. They look pretty much like this. So Merkle tree is a kind of tree whereby the description is that every leaf node, which means the nodes at the bottom, is a data block. So these are the blocks that contain all your transactions. Okay, so all the leaf nodes are then hashed. So these are non-leaf nodes because they are not at the end, and these are hashed versions of the leaf nodes. So these nodes are then combined 2 by 2 and hashed again, and this is repeated one more time until you only have one block called the root hash, which is the combination of all the leaf nodes, all the data blocks. Okay, so a block is only considered solved when the root hash produced starts with n number of zeros. Okay, remember just now in the block you saw these nonce over there. I didn't explain it because it wouldn't have made sense yet. So let's go back. Over there, nonce is part of the block. So nonce is the part that a miner will change. Is the part that the miner adds to the block, such that when you hash the block header, it's supposed to end up with a fixed number of zeros. So, and as of now, the value of n is 18. So the only way a miner can do this is by brute forcing the nonce, meaning constantly adding values to the block header, in order to end up with a hash that starts with n number of zeros. And as you can see, if you actually try this, just from adding numbers to hello world, it takes 4,251 tries to get 4 leading zeros. And right now, the number of leading zeros to solve a block is 18. So you can imagine the number of iterations that a miner will have to go through in order to find the correct nonce. Right, like that. And then once he finds the correct nonce, it is added to the chain. So, does this sound very easy? Alright. But ultimately, it's just brute force. Can't you just leave your computer running there and then just leave it there running forever until it finds 18 zeros and then boom, you got Bitcoin. Because every time you solve a block, the miner earns money. However, this reward is halved every 4 years. I think right now, yeah, this is the price for solving a block. Still quite a lot. I think if the calculation was perhaps 600 more days, this would be half or more, something like that. Okay. However, just FYI, mining is very computationally heavy. Take note that you are competing with hundreds of other miners out there that are solving for the same block, trying to get n number of leading zeros. The first person to solve the block will get the prize, the rest won't, and will have tried to compete for the next block that comes in. So that's why mining is a very competitive business right now. If you really want to go into it, you will need to get specialized equipment. Maybe you've read the news about it. So despite this, mining is not the only way you can get bitcoins or profit through bitcoins. Generating bitcoins generating bitcoins means you obtain the bitcoins. However, the way to obtain bitcoins does not necessarily have to come from generating. You can come from Bitcoin trading. Of course, you can buy and sell. If you've looked at the Bitcoin prices, it has risen and dropped quite insanely over the past year. So people that have managed to sell the Bitcoins back when it was very costly would have earned a lot by now. So this is just how people make money with Bitcoin. Okay, and that brings me to